You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about some really deep thoughts and some things that are very important, not only as an adult, but also as a child. A lot of times we don't think about mindfulness or limiting beliefs or negative self-image. And I know as an adult, many of us are dealing with it. We're dealing with it on a constant basis, trying to overcome some of these self-sabotaging beliefs or these thoughts that we have that are limiting our life. And wouldn't it have been great if we could have had some of that knowledge and education and help as a child? And I've talked about that many a times. If we could have had some of those intrinsic, values and thoughts helping us out as a child, or even maybe some meditation or some mindfulness. And so joining me today, it's a pleasure to have children's author and hypnotherapist Jo Galloway on the show. And what she's doing, I think, is amazing because it's helping children. But not only is it helping children, it's also helping adults. Jo, so glad to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing work that you're doing. So tell me a little bit. Obviously, you're a hypnotherapist, you're a children's author, but what led you down that path to start this, and then obviously to be able to write all of these meditational books?
Well, I would have to say my biggest passion is I do not want children to grow up to live the life that I had. And it's not to say that I came from a dysfunctional, abusive childhood. I had a fantastic childhood. I had working class parents that worked hard. I was a middle child of 3 girls. We had private school education. We had overseas holidays. I had the best childhood. But still, I lived by beliefs that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't lovable. I wasn't important. And these beliefs that I formed, which I didn't figure out, I didn't even know I had these beliefs. They were just running in my subconscious mind. All I knew is that I could not stay and have a constant relationship, a loving relationship. I moved from relationship to relationship. And then I was in abusive relationships because I didn't know that all I was doing was looking for love, because I didn't feel loved. I was looking for love. And I didn't care if I was abused or mistreated. It's just somebody, please love me. And then I worked physically, mentally, emotionally really hard all my life. But I just seemed to go from paycheck to paycheck. I just never seemed to get ahead in life. I was very shy. I was introverted. I never mixed in groups. I never played team sports. I was always on the outer. I was always just a loner. And this was just how I was. I didn't understand that it was because I had some sort of belief that was, in my subconscious that was running my whole show. And it wasn't until that I started studying hypnotherapy and seeing clients that I realized that all these feelings and all these emotions that we have as adults now and all these behavior issues that we don't like can be traced back to the first few years of our childhood. When we've only been on the planet, like for 7 short years, we've already come to the conclusion that we're not good enough. We already believe that we're not lovable. We already know that we're not worthy. We're not important. What we want is not available to us. We have so many beliefs that we've formed in our childhood. And then these beliefs get cemented into our subconscious, and then they become our reality. And then we look for validation in these beliefs all our lives. I couldn't find love because, no one could love me. If I found a decent, loving man, I sabotaged that relationship because, I didn't love me. So how could you possibly love me? And so this just went on from relationship to relationship. And I just think, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? And I ended up in a narcissistic relationship for 10 years, just still trying to find love. Love me, please love me. And then I realized one day, there's something wrong with him. And that was quite obvious. There was something wrong with him. But then I realized, oh my God, there has to be something wrong with me. How can I allow somebody to abuse me and treat me so badly? And then with that realization, I just thought to myself, I deserve better. I'm a good person. I'm kind. I'm nice. I don't deserve to be treated this way. And so I literally just grabbed a plastic bag. I threw in some clothes. I threw in my toiletries and I left. And I left my business. I left my home. I just rented a place and I just went into solitude. I just went into time, introspection and getting to know me, meditation after meditation and listening to podcasts of Esther Hicks and Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay, and I just began reprogramming my mind, reprogramming my self-belief, just loving myself, really self-care. There was no such thing as self-care in my life. I put everybody's needs before my own. I was not a people pleaser, but I would always want everyone around me to be happy before I was even happy. But then I spent 2 years probably just thinking of me. For once, I just started thinking about what I liked, what I didn't like, why I was like I was. And then this attracted my dream husband, my perfect home. My whole life did an absolute quantum shift. And my greatest gratitude every day is I'm so grateful for where I'm at compared to where I used to be. It's like I am a totally different person. Like, even to speak on this radio show, this is something that would never, ever cross my mind of doing. I was always in the background, and that's where I was happy staying. Because I had a psychic reading once, and the guy said to me, I would love to hire you, Jo, because you would work harder, you'd work faster, you work smarter than anybody else. And I said, no, why is that? And he said, because you don't believe you're good enough. And I thought, oh my God, you're right. I don't believe I'm good enough, and I have to constantly prove it. And that's why I found myself my whole life doing everything myself. I would never ask for help, ever. I would, be that one that was lugging the big horse feed bags, and I'll be one, and I'd never ask anybody for help because that would expose my belief that I wasn't good enough. If I got lost in the street, I would drive for miles before I think about pulling somebody over and asking them for directions because, I'm good enough. I had to constantly prove that I was good enough.
That is amazing. That's amazing, Jo. I mean, like the concept of being able to go from that extreme, being able to identify the fact that we were having, issues in relationships, finding the wrong types of people, finding people that aren't healthy, and then you realizing, kind of awakening to that, and then basically transforming. So you were basically walking through this and going through the meditations and reprogramming your brain, basically. Can you tell me more about, the day-to-day on how that you went by doing that?
Well, I've really started then to stand up for myself. Like I was still, in some way connected to that abusive relationship. And he, that control I allowed him to have, I stood up to it. And then I started not accepting it. Like, when he'd asked me to do something, no, I can't do that. And I remember him saying to me one day, and I was in the car and he grabbed me by the shirt and he asked me to do something. I said, I can't, I'm already doing 2 jobs. I've got this to do. I've got that to do. I physically cannot do what you're asking. And I said, I've got 2 jobs. He said, and he just grabbed me and he said, well, you got 4 now. And and then I just said, no. I virtually just stood my ground and stood up for myself. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? I just stood up and said no. For the first time in my whole entire life, I think I said no and took the power back. And, obviously he didn't know what to say because he'd never experienced me in any sort of force before and stood up. He was like, I think he was a bit dumbfounded, like, what happened? And so I gradually started to get myself confidence and to realize I deserve better and I don't need to take that shit from you. I don't need to take that. I am capable. I'm in control of who I am. And so gradually, I think that all happened by just positive affirmations. I think, I have this magic script that I still to this day, if I'm in the car or I'm in the shower, I just infuse myself with positive affirmations and I just roll them out like, I'm the God's gift to the world, and it just alone when I say these words, it brings up the most amazing feelings in me. It empowers me. My shoulders go back. I stand up. I'm in that power position. And it reflects on my outer world. It reflects on what I bring into me then. And people look at me and they can see my energy. I'm not that little weak girl sitting in the corner anymore. I'm somebody that they're interested in conversing with because I'm giving out that energy of confidence and giving out that energy of, strength and kindness and that I have got something to say because I live by the belief that, what I wasn't important and what I had to say wasn't important. And we can probably go on to where I got those beliefs and how easily they're formed in our childhood without our parents even realizing. Our parents doing the best they can. I parented from the best way I could, and they learn from their parents. And it's a generational parenting. And I think it needs to stop. It needs now that parents more than ever need to connect with their children before correction. They need to feel where their children are coming from before they're allowed to go off and find, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable.
That's so true. And being able to see their own limitations. And you're right. For the most part, I would say the majority of parents are trying their best. I don't think that they're trying to
Definitely.
sabotage. There
Definitely.
are those out there that are sabotaging, that are very narcissistic, that are very malignant. But for the most part, I think it's based on the limited knowledge base of what they were taught. And then it's based on, and then what their parents were taught. And so you're right. It has this generational issue as well, where if we don't turn it around at some point and even realize our own insecurities, like being able to identify as an adult our own insecurities, our own fears, our own traumas, our own triggers, those are the things that we can help our children to not be able to go down that same path.
Definitely. I think taking control of your own self-care is the children are watching you. You are their biggest role model, so they're watching you, they're listening to you, they're learning from you, and they're forming beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So you working on yourself, you're giving such a great role model for your children to show them that it's okay. It's okay to put me first and think that, that I need to work on my inner child, because I'm getting triggered by things. And I think the children are our greatest mirrors. They will trigger back to us like what we need to be more aware of. Like if you're getting triggered by something when your children doesn't do what you ask them to do, and you're getting really anxious about that and over, thinking everything, you say, well, why? Where does this come from? What can make me calm, and what can we look at this from a different perspective?
Very true. Very
without
true.
reacting, So that's so important to be working on yourself. Working on yourself is helping your children more than you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And Joe, you're so right. It's like when we show children and others around us, we become the example. And when you're learning more about how to make yourself better, but how to also overcome some of these limiting beliefs. And that's what we have so much to talk about, because we're going to be talking about breaking these barriers down, helping kids to overcome limiting beliefs, also dealing with anger and fear and chaos and stuff, because, life is changing. It's constantly changing. And I know that many of us deal with the fears of that on our own as well. And later on here during the show, we're going to be talking more about that and conquering some of these challenges, as well as how parents can really help their kids and influence them. And that's why I find it so practical and so amazing, Joe, what you're doing, is because you're a living version of this. It's not us just talking about it. It's not just esoterically saying, oh, this is what we could do. This is actually work in progress, doing it and being consistent. And so when we return, we're talking more about not only how to deal with this, how to begin, how to understand meditation, but also, what the different books and the different series are about, because they're separate, they're direct, they're specific for each subject matter. And we're going to talk about that as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. So stay tuned. Don't change the channel. We have more coming up. Joe is going to be here for the entire hour, and we're going to be sharing some really great information as well, not only for our children, but also for ourselves. So stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back in. I'll be back this time. You know it. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Joining me today in the show is children's author and hypnotherapist Jo Galloway. Jo, right before the break, we were talking about, your journey into understanding yourself and really kind of overriding these old limiting beliefs. Can you tell us a little bit more about, hypnotherapy? Not only how does it work for adults, but how does that work for kids as well?
Well, the power of the mind is absolutely amazing. So before the age of 7, children are naturally in a state of hypnosis. They are not mature enough. They haven't developed their frontal cortex of their brain. So that's their reasoning side of their mind. So no matter what you tell them before the age of 7, they're going to believe. And they're going to absorb it into their subconscious mind, and it's there to stay. So that is what hypnosis is about. It is quietening down your conscious analytical side of your mind. So it's a matter of just deep relaxation, quietening your ego or your conscious mind, and being able to reprogram and listen straight and talk straight to your subconscious. So when you are in that state of hypnosis, as young children are, you can easily reprogram your mind. You can tell yourself better thinking thoughts. Instead of negative thoughts, you can reprogram them. So the benefit of this hypnosis is because we're going directly straight into the subconscious. You can do it in a conscious side as well, but you also have that critical factor jumping in and that ego jumping in and counteracting your words and your thoughts and trying to overanalyze them. So, but when you're in hypnosis, you don't have that. You're talking straight to your subconscious. So that's the benefit of hypnosis. And that is why I start all my books with that mindfulness meditation. It's to get their minds into that state of hypnosis where we're just talking to their subconscious. We don't want them overthinking. We don't want them overreacting. We just want to talk and empower them right to the core, right into where it makes a difference. And our subconscious is our memory bank. And what we program into our subconscious over time becomes who we are. It becomes our reality. So if you've been telling yourself something over and over again all your life that you're not good enough and you can't do that and I can't do this, and you're virtually talking yourself out of it. You're programming yourself to be the way you are. But you can easily reprogram that. It's just in a state of hypnosis. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So it's so easy to just put yourself in a relaxed state of mind, to just with deep breathing, visualization, just progressive relaxation. You can easily put yourself in a state where you're talking directly to your subconscious. Mm-hmm. And then the more you talk to it, the more you repeat the same thing over and over again. The mind loves to hear it over and repetitive, and it becomes the truth. It becomes who you are. The more the mind hears it, it goes, I've been hearing you say this over and over again. It must be true. So then you've got a new set of beliefs then. So what you believed before is no longer true. So now I believe I'm lovable. So I'm going to attract more love into my life, because what we feel, we give out, and what we give out, we get back. So it all starts with training ourselves, reprogramming our mind, and we all can do that so easily by just shutting off that overthinking critical factor of our minds.
That's very interesting. And, when we return, we'll be talking more about that, because I think it is about repetition. It is about consistency. And obviously with children under a certain age, it probably doesn't have to be that much of repetition compared to us as adults. And so we'll be sharing with that. Don't change the channel. We have a lot of things to talk about. We want to also discuss the bedtime healing meditation series that Jo has created, which is really profound. And how, hypnotherapy and mindfulness are so important. And that's something that I've talked about in many of these shows about mindfulness and being aware and being mindful and in the moment and being able to feel and be part of our lives. And a lot of times we're not doing that. We're going through the motions. We're not paying attention. We're accepting old negative beliefs and patterns in our life. And so this is going to be an awakening for all of us to listen to this show. So stay tuned. We have a lot more coming up. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Jo Galloway is here. She's a hypnotherapist and children's author, and we've been talking about hypnotherapy and the value of that, not only for adults, but for children. And now I really want to deep dive. So Jo has created a series, and it's the Bedtime Healing Meditation series. Jo, let's talk about the various stories within the series. I love it. I mean, just from the very beginning of the introduction of why we have healing meditations, is so empowering. So let's start with the first series of books, the story that you created, and we'll kind of go from there.
Perfect. Yep. Well, I first realized that, I was working with adults, but I really needed to be helping the children. This is the most crucial time that we need to be instilling self-love, confidence, resilience into our children, because it's going to benefit their whole entire lives. So while their minds are so young and impressionable and moldable, we want to be installing all the positivity into them. We want them to have that positive mental attitude for life. So I started with each book has a different theme, whether it's, building confidence and self-love, whether it's overcoming anxiety, to bedwetting, to scared of the dark, to two homes and one heart, unconditional love. So each of the stories have a story within them, but they all begin with a mindfulness meditation, guided visualization. They're not picture books. They are meant to be read at bedtime when the children are in that relaxed state, so they're able to absorb all the positive messages that are in each story. So I really wanted to just make a story that the children can relate to, and also the parents. As the parents read these stories, they're working on their inner child as well, because it's never too late. It's never too late to become that loving parent to yourself. So all the praise that I'm putting into you're telling your child, you're virtually telling your subconscious the same. So they work in both ways, with helping the parents and helping the children. And so I started the books with the magical worry balloon. That was my first one. That was the one that I started with, just helping children to relieve their anxieties and their fears and their worries, and to know how good they feel when they're not worried about something, when they're not overthinking. So that story is just a guided meditation where they go on a journey and they encounter a magical worry balloon, and they can put all their worries into the magical worry balloon and step back, and it's like handing them over to the universe. And the worry balloon raises in the sky, and the more worries they put into the balloon, the higher and the faster the balloon can fly. And then they can step back, and then they can feel how good they feel. Oh my God, I feel amazing now that I'm not worried about something. How I can change my thoughts now to positive thoughts and better thinking thoughts. And I don't need to worry about that anymore. I've handed that over to the universe. It's gone away with the wind. And just embrace themselves and how good they feel and how lovable they are, and just empower them with confidence. And that led me to my next book, which was The Magical Treasure Hunt. Mm-hmm. And that was deep diving more into self-love and confidence. It's a story where the children go on a journey with their best friend, and along the way they collect treasure stones, and on these stones are inscribed with powerful messages like, I am good enough, and I'm amazing, I'm lovable, I'm beautiful, my body is beautiful just as it is, I am confident, I like myself. And all these messages, they get to collect them on little rocks and carry these rocks with them everywhere they go, as a reminder always, whenever they feel, they can remember that I am good enough, I am lovable, my body is beautiful just the way it is. And build confidence in children and self-love. So that led me to going on to I Am Different, I Am Me. And that is to appreciate your uniqueness. Like being different is good. We're all meant to be different. There's none of us alike. The only thing we probably have in common that we all strive for connection. Other than that, we all have our own likes. We all have our own dislikes, and that's okay. We can't be good at everything. We just cannot. I mightn't be good at math, but I'm perfect at reading. And it's to highlight your special talent. And when you are happy with your special talent and you're not trying to compete with everybody else, you appreciate your uniqueness and who you are, and you shine because you know who you are. You're not trying to compare yourself to others. And that's how we're meant to be. We're all meant to be different. And that is how we're meant to be.
And I believe it's so important when you're reading these stories, also when you're reading these meditational series to your children. As an adult, I'm sure there's a lot of epiphanies as well, where you're realizing that you have, you've been kind of looking at other people. You have been comparing your life to other people. There's a lot of these things. I mean, that's very interesting. I'm sure there's a lot of epiphanies that the adults have you been told that a lot of
Yes.
I bet
Yes.
like, wow, I've
Yeah.
been doing this. Oh my God, I've been doing this my whole life.
Yeah, no, like I said, they're not even an eye opener for children, but the parents can and really relate to them.
Mhm.
Especially my generation, who grew up in a generation where children were seen, they weren't heard. Parents very rarely told them that they loved you. You were left to make your own beliefs about life. And when children don't understand what's going on, of course they're going to think, well, what does that mean? And that's when we're going to form beliefs. Like, why does mummy look at me when I'm talking to her? Oh, I'm not important. And
Mhm.
and then it happens again as, oh, I'm not important. Why does daddy yell at me when I, don't come home with good grades? Well, I'm not good enough. And when we get compared to, why can't you be as good as your sister? Why do you have to, we start forming beliefs about ourselves that is totally untrue. Like, I
Mhm.
believed my father went to his grave never telling me he loved me. But when I look back as an adult now, oh my God, he gave me so much, and he went out of his way to get a second job to feed my horses, and he did so much for me. But as a
Mhm.
child, I still felt I wasn't lovable. He
Right.
didn't love me, and I went looking for my father's love in every relationship. So, left to our own devices, we can form the most craziest beliefs. But I think my books open up that communication between the parent and the children too.
Mhm.
They get the parent relating, and then they can understand. The children can start talking to them more about their feelings and their emotions, and that strengthens their bond. And then the children aren't left to make up false beliefs that are going to not ruin their lives, but they're going to have a,
Well,
you know,
they could
the,
ruin. I mean, they could get to the
yeah,
point. I mean, that
oh,
we've seen it, but I also think the power of your series also opens the door if parents are willing to be honest as far as being authentic in the spot of, hey, I'm dealing with this, or I've compared myself to others, or because even it could be a very innocent comment that's made by a parent growing up that you don't really, like, but becomes such a big deal, and you start,
mm,
but I agree, this could really open the door to really honest communication where a child realizes, hey, I'm not the only one that feels this way. Mom has gone through it, or dad has felt it. And I think that could
yeah,
be really powerful and bring a family dynamic closer together, because it's not like the parents know everything and they're
mm,
portraying themselves as this perfection, or the kids don't, because I think when we were growing up and when I was growing up, you looked at your parents as like, these gods because they were big, huge comparatively, and you didn't get to pick them. They were there. They were already there. There was no picking of them in this timeline. And, it was interesting because you looked up to them for everything. And I think
yeah,
that they only knew what they knew. I mean, my mom was like 27, 28. I mean, she wasn't that wise and not that old. And, my dad was, about the same age. And it's just like they knew all they knew, but we automatically took that as gospel truth, everything that came out of their mouth, And I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
when you kind of are able to communicate with your parents, and the parents can communicate with the kid, go, hey son, I'm dealing with that same issue, or I went through that, or I got bullied as a kid, or whatever. I think that takes away that mysticism or that fear factor, as a child. And it goes, oh wow, I can really actually have a conversation with my parents about being bullied, or having the situation that happened at
Mm.
school, or feeling bad about getting that bad grade on that test and feeling really small, or not having that friend in school, or somebody turning their back on you, or whatever. And I think that can really open up the line of communication.
Yeah, exactly, Ashley. Like, children need to know that their parents are not superhuman. Not super mom and super dad. We're human. We're just like you. We've gone through it. We've been there, and that open communication, when the children realize, like, you understand me, you see me, you hear me. That is like, your children. Parents are great at fulfilling so many needs of children, to be clothed and fed and housed, but
Mhm.
that connection that child is looking for is the biggest, and to be seen and to be heard and to be understood. This is where my books really come into play. They get the children to understand, and the parents to come on the same timeline. When I'm not your authority figure, and I'm here to help you in all the ways possible, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
here with you. So that
More of a
Oh,
guidance, not,
yeah.
less of an authority. And I also think
Mhm.
too, it's almost like the same as, like bringing up the concept of alcohol or drugs, with your kids. And I think that most
Yeah.
kids hide it when they think mom and dad are perfect, or they're going to yell
Yeah.
at me, or they're what. But I mean, I hate everybody's drank too much at some point in time. Everybody's done this.
Yeah.
And if you were able to open that line of communication and say, hey, this is what I've done, let's talk about it. I don't
Yeah.
want you going down the same path. Or if you do, we need to be honest here so we can have communication. And I think it's the same thing. It's like the big issues that normally create havoc in someone's life is the stuff that people feel like they can't talk about. They feel
That's
like
right.
they're alone, like there's no other option. I'm
Yep.
the only one dealing with this. Nobody understands me. And those are the things that you really take to heart. And those are the things that I really do think mess up your life if you don't have
Okay.
someone to communicate that
Yeah.
you can trust, and then vice versa, that they might open up and say this. I mean, and being able to have an open mind and being mindful in the moment that your child is speaking up about something that maybe they're not happy about, or maybe they're not thrilled about, or maybe they're just insecure, or they feel bad about themselves about, but allowing that open communication to happen, because you could foster an amazing, child parent dynamic through this type of stuff, but also maybe make changes to your your issues as well, because a lot of us have these patterns that we're living in based on these
Mhm.
thoughts that we had that probably started when we were 5, 6, and 7. Your first grade teacher makes a comment about, hey, you're never going to do this or whatever, and that goes with you all the way through high school. And I mean, and
Mhm.
that could ruin your life to some degree. At least some part of your life is hurt based on believing whatever was said, and then putting that into thought process, every day for how many years you're going to actually believe that to be true.
Yeah, yeah, and being able to look back and realizing those beliefs that you formed were just lies. There's something that you believed because you didn't have the capacity to understand what was going on with your parents or your teachers, or they might have been having a bad day, or we live in such a stressful life at the moment. So, but their children don't know that unless we
Mhm.
communicate with them, unless we tell them, oh my God, mummy's having a really bad day. And it's okay. That's okay. I'm allowed
Mhm.
to just go out there and have a meltdown. But when I come back, it's okay. And children can see that. Oh, mummy's just like me. Like, we're okay to express our emotions. We don't
Right.
have to hide our emotions from others. And when the more we hide our emotions, well, they become your depression, and they become like they cause your organs to melt down and health issues. And so expressing our emotions is so important, and we learn that from a young age, that it's okay to talk about how we're feeling, and
Mhm.
we know that our parents are there and got our backs. So we
Well, and it's
grow
like
up
if
with
you're
some
having a bad day, you're right, Joe. If you're having a bad day and you make the comment, to your kiddo, instead of them thinking, "Oh, it's something I've done,"
yes, yeah,
it's like, no, no, actually, this is what happened at work today, or this is
yeah,
what was said, or this
yeah.
is what I got from whatever it is. This is why I'm not feeling, or this is why I'm acting this way. It has nothing to do with you. And
No,
I
that's
think
right.
also that could change a lot of dynamic in a family dynamic
Yeah,
pretty quickly, and
yeah,
then the child begins to say, oh, wow, okay, mom has feelings separate from me, because as kids, we think that we are, the reason for their happiness is us, the reason for their sadness is us, the reason for their anger is us, and that's how a kid, you feel that way. And sometimes, right, it's not about us. And it's good to
that's
know
right.
that.
Yes, yeah. So my books will go on. They just cover so many topics, from bedwetting to scared of the dark to, I love school. It's just about, that positive mental attitude. It's not so much about school. I mean, even though I've said it, you've said it, we've all heard our children say, I hate school. But when you say, I hate something, you're putting a negative tone to it. And if you just watched your thoughts and watched your words, because, our words have wings and our thoughts are things. And it's like sending them off. Like, the book is about watching our words, because when we say negative words, they go off into the universe like a rocket, and they come back and they bring you that same experience. So if
Mhm.
we can change our words from I hate school to I love school, and then start looking for all the positive things you love in school, even if it's lunchtime, even if it's the walk home, they find the positive in everything, and change your thoughts to positive thoughts instead, and just being conscious of that, just being conscious of your the words you're speaking. And it's also for the parents too, be conscious of when you say what you like and what you don't like, because the universe is listening, and you're reflecting back what you think. So all the books have that underlying belief system to give you a better reality in life.
That's so
Whether for
true.
children or adults.
Yeah, and I love that. And Joe, I love where we're going with this because it really does impact the children. It impacts the adults. It impacts if you're reading this to your child. It impacts them, and it opens up the communication. So when we return, Joe's going to give us her nuggets of wisdom, which is what we do every time on Live Your True Life Perspectives. So stay tuned. Don't change the channel. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. I've been talking to Jo Galloway today, children's author and hypnotherapist. Jo, I like to ask in this time of the show for all of our authors, golden nuggets of wisdom, and I know that I know you have at least 3 of those that you'd like to share on today's show for our listeners.
Well, I always say to my own daughter-in-laws, the biggest thing that you can teach your child is self-love. When they come out dressed and they go, Mom, do I look good in this? You ask them, do you think you look good in this? It's what they think that matters. It's not what I think that matters. If they, just empower them with positivity, self-love, confidence, and affirmations. Just power them and pump affirmations into them. In the car, in the drive to school, constantly, I'm good enough, I am lovable, I've got this, I can do that, I'm amazing, and just build them up. So when they get out of the car, they're like superheroes. Bullies have not a chance to even come near them. They've already got their shield around them. Their energy's raised, their vibration is high, and they're coming to school with a positive mental attitude. So self-love, it all starts within. And and a second one with wisdom would be your self-care. I mean, if your children are triggering you and you know that because they're not doing what you want them to do when you're asking them to do it, and you're getting triggered because they're not listening to you, and when you were a child that no one listened to you and you didn't have a voice, work on yourself. What you're teaching your children, teach yourself. It's never too late to become that loving parent. Never too late to empower yourself. Put yourself first. Build yourself up, because helping yourself is helping your children more than you know. The children are reflecting off your energy. So, don't overthink. Positivity. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So, empower yourself. So that would be my second nugget. Work on yourself, because you're really working on your children. Mm-hmm. And my third nugget would be, I have to be the best one, the connection before correction. Because we need to connect the children with what they're having. And when they're having a meltdown and when they're reacting to things, they're forming beliefs. And they're only reacting because they're trying to have a need fulfilled. And when we can connect to what that need is, we can get down on the child's level. And we can say, I know exactly how you feel. I've been there. We've done that. But how about we take a few deep breaths, or, and understand why these children need these needs and the roles that they're playing to get these needs fulfilled. If children don't feel that their needs are fulfilled, they will either become the sick one. They'll find some way to get their needs to be seen, heard, and connection with you. They will be the good one. They will be brilliant. And so that's how they'll get their needs fulfilled. Or they'll be the caring one, where they just over people please, and they just do everything, and you never have to worry about them once they're sort of caring, gentle souls. Or they're going to be the rebel. They're going to be the one that's just disobedient and defiant. And when you see these behaviors in your child, know that there's an underlying need behind them. Is to form connection. Mm-hmm. Form connection and avoid rejection. So that's all the mind wants, is to form connection. So understand your child's needs, form that connection, give yourself the self-love that you deserve. You're never too late to become that loving parent. And teach your children self-love. Teach your children that what they're good at and what they don't have to be good at everything. What they're good at, that's what they're meant to be good at. what they look like, that's how they're meant to be, and accept everything about themselves, to love every piece of themselves, to love the way they speak, love the way they talk, love the way they do everything. And then their confidence is going to grow and build. And as they get into an adulthood, they're very early going to be bullied. They're going to excel in anything they succeed in anything they choose. Their whole life is not going to be restricted from limiting beliefs that are going to hold them back and prevent them from being the person they were meant and born to be. The universe has put us here to shine, and we don't want to blemish that with limiting beliefs. We want to be the human that we were meant to be.
Very powerful, Jo. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and just amazing work. And you can find Jo at littlebluezen.com. Littlebluezen.com is the website, as well as on Facebook and Instagram at littlebluezen, on Instagram at little.blue.zen. Amazing stuff. I'm so glad you're doing this. You're changing the world. You're changing the children. You're helping people. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. Thank you for having me. And I'm so excited and passionate about helping the next generation of children.
I'm passionate about it too, and it's just amazing the work you're doing. So check it out. Go check out the meditational series. This is great for kids. This is great for you. It's great for the family. It's great for parents. And this is something that's so important and so dear to my heart. So, Jo, thank you again for coming on the show. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back on. Be back this time in 3 shakes.